I was thinking more about the earlier conversation about the extent to which something is inherently bad, and my current thesis that, well, there is no such thing as inherently good or bad, because the ethical value of an action is something that is determined on the basis of a number of variables, like the intention of the person who commits the act, the way the act is received by the person who the act is done to, the consequences of the act, and many, many more. And of course, there's also an argument to say that if you remove human beings and living creatures out of the equation, there's no such thing as morality, because where's the good or bad in just planets crashing into each other? So, another way of saying that is that morality isn't absolute, it's relative. And that's what I want to talk about a bit, because if morality is relative, then where does that leave us in judging or morally assessing the actions of cultures and groups that act in ways that we feel fall short of our own moral standing, or standards rather? And in terms of history, where does that leave our ability to morally assess the acts of our ancestors? Brutal stuff like, the cavemen who used to clobber each other on the head and rape each other's wives, the Egyptians held slaves, human sacrifice in many cultures, like the Carthaginians used to do it, or, Genghis Khan. Where's the morality of that? How do we judge these people? Do we judge them according to our own standards if everything is relative? Now, it's a ridiculously complex question. I definitely don't have the answers. But recently I was reading an unrelated paper from a professor of philosophy in San Diego, I think it was. It was called Moral Culpability Under Oppression. And the idea is, if a person is oppressed because of their class or ethnicity, more likely both, and that person, as a consequence of that oppression, devotes his life to crime or commits some immoral act, to what extent is that person responsible for acts committed as a result of that oppression? And the thesis was that a person is responsible for his acts committed as a result of oppression to the extent that that person had other alternatives available to him or her and then chose to ignore them. So it depends on the amount, the availability, and the quality of the alternative actions. And I think that's an interesting principle that we can apply to our moral relativism vis-a-vis current other cultures and our own and other cultures in the past. So I guess we need to look at the alternatives that are available. And I would say an appropriate standard is the best current moral understanding that is widely available to our society. Now, to give you an example, in the 50s, none of us knew or cared about the fact that animals undergo horrific suffering in order to bring meat to our table. So I would argue that in the 50s, it wasn't immoral to eat meat. However, today, and I say that as an avid meat consumer, we have a wealth of information available about the torture these animals are put through. And so when we decide to eat meat and not give it up, despite this information that is available to us, and that even if we choose to ignore it, we know is available, well, we are making a choice, and it's a moral choice. And it is a choice that probably falls beneath the standard of the moral knowledge and understanding that is widely available to our society, no matter how many people choose to ignore it, because, vegetarians aren't the majority. But still, there is a significant portion of the population who knows this information. And so we are willfully ignoring it in the moment in which we decide to eat meat. Now, I feel that the basic idea that causing unnecessary suffering to other human beings is something that we've known for many, many millennia. So in any age that would have been understood, causing such unnecessary suffering would have been immoral. But then there's a question as to what counts as unnecessary. Because I would argue that there would have been times in the past where we genuinely didn't know better, that slavery was unnecessary, or that sacrificing a human child to appease a god was not unnecessary. Point is, again, I don't have the answers, but I think that there is an argument to say that if the best current understanding of morality available to the world permitted those facts, maybe those weren't immoral either.